Well, good afternoon, everybody. How are you doing? I'm going to ask my friends to come up straight away onto the stools. Yeah, you don't get to sit down. Is everyone having a good conference so far? Thanks for coming. Grab a seat. Well, everyone realizes, just to double check, we're in the dance elective, dance collab. It's so funny. I fly. Whenever I fly, I laugh because almost every time just before they shut the door on the airplane, so we're flying from like LA to Sydney, they'll be like, just to double check, you were on the LA to Sydney flight. If you're not going to Sydney, get off the plane now. And I'm going like, man, how do you go through all those checks and get on the wrong plane? But you do.
Unbelievable, really.
Well, this is actually the Worship Leader Collab, as hopefully everybody understands and knows. And I've got some incredible friends with us, and just before we get into it, I'm going to ask Annie to pray, because we want to pray and believe that we're going to have fun, that you'll be helped, that it'll be super practical, but more than anything, our prayer is always that God would have his way whenever we gather like this. So, Annie, would you like to pray?
Yes, I would love to. Okay, let's pray. Jesus, we just thank you for an opportunity to be together, God. Thank you for what you've already done today. And I just pray that in this next hour that we have together, Lord, that you would just give us understanding, open our hearts to hear not just what people want to talk about or say, but actually what your heart is. And I pray that we would leave this place knowing more, having laughed and had a great time together, and actually just hungrier for your presence and passionate about truth and worship and leading people into your presence. In Jesus' name, everybody said, amen.
Amen. So what we're going to do is I'm going to first get everyone to introduce themselves and talk about a couple of things. And really kind of the heart and the thought behind this elective or this collab is that we'd really kind of go over some of the fundamentals, but also I want to try and get as much of that done in the first half of this, and then create a lot of time for people to actually be able to ask questions, and I've got a bunch of questions as well that we can go through if nobody has any questions. But let's start on the far left there. You're right.
Hello, JD.
Who are you?
My name is Dean Usher. I am from Melbourne. I get to look after our creative teams down there. I'm a Queenslander who spent 10 years here in Sydney with this crew, and now I'm in the greatest city of all, Melbourne, and that's who I am.
And when and where was the first time you led worship?
So in Brisbane, in a little church plant called Riverside Community Church with my Maiten Coolabah, whatever it was. I think I was singing, I don't know what I was singing, Hungry by Vineyard, probably. Best song ever.
Well done.
I was so scared, I was shaking.
All right, do you want to?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Melody Wagner Mackinnon. What am I saying?
Just, your name, what do you do?
Yeah, I get to worship lead, songwrite, live my best life.
Very key part of our Young and Free team.
Yeah.
When and where, do you remember the first time you ever led worship?
I was racking my brain, but it was probably like on this platform where we do wildlife. So that's like high school ministry, youth ministry. And I was very, very nervous.
That's good.
Hello, my name is Alexander Pelepesite Epiesefa. That's my full name, and
Everyone on three, say it.
I am a creative pastor out in our city campus, about an hour away. So if you actually want to see some of the city and the beaches, feel free to come over to where we are. Just kidding, slight plug. And then the first time I ever led worship was in our high school aged youth group ever in the city campus, long time ago.
I'm JD, and the first time I ever led worship was actually downstairs in Wildlife, and it was because we only had one worship leader at the time, and he just didn't rock up. And so he called me during soundcheck going, I'm not coming, you got to lead tonight. And it was the scariest thing ever.
You did that to me once, actually.
Did I?
Yeah, that was my first time leading worship here, was when you didn't roster somebody for the youth girls night, and I ended up leading. Anyways, my name is Annie Garratt, and I'm American. I've been here for 15 years or something, and I'm one of the worship pastors at our Hills campus. And the first time I led worship, I was kind of tricked into it my friend asked me if I would come and sing at his dad's church. And when I got there, I realized he had said we were a worship band called Mustard Seed Faith. Like, we had a name and everything, and there was a flyer, and I'd never led worship before, and it was my worst nightmare. So I just closed my eyes and literally sung some songs and never signaled the band, I just pretended it wasn't happening until it was over. So it was terrible. And yeah, that was my time. You got a mic?
My name's Sean Foyt. I am from Bethel Music and a bunch of other stuff that I do around the world as well, but I live in the booming metropolis of Redding, California. It's just exploding with. What was the question? First time I led worship? So first time I led worship, I was 15, similar situation. I think the main guy got sick that day or something like that, and I knew 2 chords, and I broke 3 strings. It was fantastic.
I was so pumped that Sean could jump up and be a part of this. We've been friends for over 15 years, and he's doing incredible things and goes to the most craziest places. Hopefully we'll get to hear a little bit more about that tomorrow, I think, in one of our main sessions. But the real question I think that everyone really wants to know, which we're going to go down as quick as possible, but take your time if you need to. What is your biggest worship leading fail?
That is a good question. There are so many, JD. I remember one recently. Our West Campus started a new Sunday PM service, and anyone knows who you're starting a youth service, it needs to be like on a level 12 to start. So the campus pastor requested the brilliant United song Rule, which I hadn't played for about 6 years, I don't think. So we're like, let's do it, and let's do it well, right? And so we rehearsed it. We had it sounding fantastic. The service started. It was electric. People were at like a level 12 to go, and we pressed play on the track. We start singing. What's the first line? I can't remember. The woes or something. I don't know how it starts. But about like 4 bars behind me, I can hear Crocker's voice in a different key. And I'm going, what is going on? It is just freaking me right out. So we stop and I go, how fun is that? And the church goes, yeah, this is awesome. And so we press play again, and the exact same thing happens with the crowd. And I'm singing with everything. The youth are pumped. And then like 4 bars behind, Crocker comes in. What had happened, TV was pressing play on a visual, but they didn't mute the audio. So literally the live sound of United was coming through the whole front of house in a half step. So it was like, whatever, C sharp and D. It sounded fantastic.
That's amazing. One of my biggest fails would be at the city campus. I was leading the first praise song. It happened to be Brighter. And I thought I had enough time to run to the bathroom, so I ran out of the Ord into the main foyer, lined up for the bathroom. I was like, oh, I'm doing great for time. And I'm washing my hands, and I hear the dun, 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 dun. I'm like, that sounds a lot like Brighter. Like, that's not the pre-roll, is it? Anyway, I walk into the Ord, and my song has started, and Hannah Hobbs is looking for me, and I'm like, yes, I'm coming. Grabbed the mic and led verse 2. It was fantastic.
Brilliant. Probably the one comes to mind. I remember once I was leading a Sunday morning, and for some reason I was super engaged in worship that I hadn't opened my eyes for, I think, like 2 minutes. And I kind of forgot where the mic, because the mic was on a mic stand. And I remember just this one moment of going, boom, like kind of hitting the mic stand. And I'm kind of startled, but like when you know the camera's on you, you got to just like kind of smile through. Little did I know, my mouth started bleeding, and I'm trying to smile to play it off. So I have like 2 of my best mates and like another friend just going like this, and I'm not smiling big enough. Like I thought they're going, I look like they can tell that I've been hurt. So I'm smiling bigger and bigger, and then one of the boys is literally just going like this. He's going. So then I kind of turned to the screen. This was back in the day when the screen used to be like a little bit delayed, so you can kind of turn and then see it for a second. And I just realized my whole mouth was just smeared with like blood. And I'm just smiling to the church, and they're uncomfortable while I'm trying to show them how comfortable I am in this moment. And then kind of the rest of the set, I'm just doing this. I'm like singing. I'm just going, That'll probably be my most recent.
That's amazing. I feel like I shared one of my biggest fails just in that last session, breaking my youth pastor's leg. I've also ripped my jeans completely, basically off, and had to go off stage and find a random stranger in the crowd and borrow his jeans to finish it off. I many times try and start off the service after the pre-roll and get my tongue, like my lips just twisted and nothing comes out, and it's like I'm speaking in tongues. I think for sure, though, one of the things that made me cringe was when I started the same song twice. That was pretty devastating.
I hate going after you because you have really funny ones. I've had many, many fails. I'll just pick the most recent one. Was in one of our services next door, and Pastor Brian was preaching that we had already done worship and he wanted to do another song, and I guess he was literally spent quite a lot of time talking about the song Good, Good Father. He was speaking about the lyrics. Everyone's laughing because they saw it over the link probably. Yes. And he just was elaborating, and I don't know what I was doing or where in my mind I was, but in my mind I was singing a praise the name, and I was coming back in with everything I had. And so I did, and it was not the right song, and I knew when I felt his hand on me, and he just stopped me, and then we had to spend time talking about why I had done the wrong song, and everyone messaged me because when you make a mistake, like, there's like 30 locations watching you. It doesn't sound that bad, but it was quite humbling. Sean?
Oh, man. I have so many, especially, being at Bethel where everything's live streamed. And so a lot of times where the tracks are in the wrong key and you come in, and that's fun. But the most kind of crazy one I can think of was about 2 years ago. I was in Mozambique, and I was doing this worship thing with, I don't know, probably like 2,000 pastors, and we were in this kind of crazy location, and I'm trying to learn one of these choruses in Portuguese, and I'm like so pumped about it because I'm like, it's such a simple chorus, but I'm like getting the hang of it, and I'm really excited. And so I was gonna have the Mozambican guys that were with me kind of lead the song off, and then I was gonna like charge in on the first chorus and just freaking sing in their language, and just like I was so pumped about it. And they had told me, hey, sometimes we have like these power outages or sometimes power surges, so just like, be careful, like just be aware of that. Wow. Sometimes the country turns the power, like it's just volatile. And so I was like, oh, it's fine, So I get up there to launch into this chorus, and so pumped, and my mouth hits the microphone, and I get electrocuted. Wow. Not even joking. Wow. I get electrocuted in the middle of the first chorus, and I get flattened. I just lay flat on the ground. Wow. And because they don't have it, like the power's not grounded there, so it's just like 200-something volts like through your teeth, and I touched the microphone, which you're not supposed to do, I guess, and so instantaneously, it was like, and these guys, it's like this, I don't know if it happens all the time or they're used to it, and they just stopped everything, and I kind of just like woke up on the ground, and there was like 100 pastors laying hands on me. So it's pretty fun.
Brought you back
pretty
from
good
death to life. That's amazing. Wow. All right, so we're going to kind of, it's so fun, hey? Does this help? Like, I love this because it makes me feel a little bit more normal. And I'm sure that every single one, we could just spend the next hour lining up telling our biggest worship leader fails, and we'd probably all walk out so encouraged. Maybe we'll do that next year, okay? We'll make a collab like Worship Fail, and everyone just comes and gets to share their story. All right, so I want to kind of go through really quickly in the next 15 minutes some of the like just the fundamentals, because I'm sure that there'll be, we're kind of prepared, we're trying to approach today at least from the angle of if you've never led worship but you want to, or you've just started, or you've been doing it for 20 years, or anywhere in between, hoping that you'd be inspired, encouraged, and take something away, because I think overall for me, one thing that I've learned that's so important is we never arrive, and we never, we never get to a place where we need to stop working on our craft. And like I was getting singing lessons after last night's meeting because we've got a recording coming up, and so I was in our studio next door at like midnight having a singing lesson with Dee to just try and get better. And so I think if that's definitely the plan for now. So just if we'd kind of go over the fundamentals of the journey of leading worship, I think it's right to start at preparation. Obviously, we won't have time for everyone to talk on all these different topics, but does anyone want to, here on the panel, would like to talk about the way they would prepare to lead worship? Dean, I'm looking at you first, even though...
Okay, firstly, I'd say you can't just you don't become the worship leader you want to be overnight. And so I think preparation is like a lifelong thing, is what I'd have to say. Are you asking practically how do I prepare? Or I think the truth is like your whole journey of worship, your whole understanding of worship comes out in your worship and in your worship leading. Your whole philosophy of leading people comes out in that. And so I think it's not an overnight thing. I think don't put too much pressure on yourself. If you're here and you want to be here tomorrow, take time. Life's a journey. So how do I prepare for worship leading on a Sunday? I know the current songs we're doing. I'm trying to get the season of church that we're in and get songs that'll speak into that. I'll get that to the team so that they can be prepared. And then spiritually, I'm praying for Sunday. I'm trying to see what the heart of God is for that service. And we have 5 services in Melbourne City Campus, so it's that service 5 times over. So I think preparing with songs, with heart, and with your skill, like JD said, vocal lessons, guitar lessons, whatever you need to be doing to be taking your craft a step further each way.
Yeah, I think exactly that. I guess more practicalities. If I'm rostered to lead somewhere, I'm thinking about what service is it? Is it I don't get rostered on at youth. That's funny. I was going to say, is it a youth service? No, it wouldn't happen. But is it like our women's meeting, or is it a Sunday night? Or we have different services here. We have an 8 a.m. chapel service, which is kind of, a lot of that congregation is a little bit older, and so we might do a lot of hymns there. So I'm thinking about that. Who am I leading with? What would our song list look like? How would we work together? Chatting to my MD, have a plan for the songs, try and get, like what Dean said, and pray about it, get a sense of direction about the service. Yeah, make sense?
Yeah, I think, we really try to wrestle over set lists quite a bit. Like we'll have like knockdown dragouts, like, over, what songs and what moments. And I think, I like to approach things real collaboratively. Sometimes our drummer or bass player, everybody's locked in the flow. Everyone feels like they're leading in some capacity. But, the spontaneity is kind of the reward of preparation. So I think a lot of times worship leaders find themselves at odds with those two things. And sometimes the reason why we can really go to some cool spaces and cool places is because we prepare and we know what we're going to do. We know where we're going to land a song. We know the space in between songs. We know what key we're going to be in. And we kind of have an idea. And it's amazing how, as you become excellent in crafting that, and the more energy and time you put into it, the less nervous and the more confident that you feel that you can go somewhere new, after you've kind of set a foundation. So that's my encouragement. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. I think that that you can find some really cool surprises, but you just don't stumble into those. You got to kind of know where you're going to go, know where you're going to start, and then take off from there.
I love that. It's true that spontaneity is the reward of preparation, and I do think that it can be so easy to approach it like we want these free worship or whatever we want to kind of call them, but the more prepared we are, the further off the track we can go. And you touched on it, which I'm really passionate about, or has been a huge learning curve to me, is how important picking a song list or a set list is. And different services, and depending on your level of leadership or trust with your oversight or pastor, sometimes I know there's environments where someone else will set the set list for you, and I think all of us have had to navigate both seasons, and they're both as kind of challenging and rewarding as each other. But from your experience, Alex, I'd love you to talk about what's your wisdom on when it comes to picking a song list or a set list? They're the same thing, by the way. I don't know what you call them.
I would say probably the best thing ultimately is to remember like you're part of the bigger picture. So for me, it's always easy for me to think, I would love these songs because I'm sitting at home at 9 p.m. weeping in front of the Lord to these songs. But the truth is that when I step in a context when it comes to church, it's not about me. It's actually about the greater picture of where our church is moving forward and kind of what that's doing. I think the a little cheat sheet I always think of is the beauty of what we get to do is that we get to sit in multiple services. So you actually get to sit in services where you see what the church is singing, what they're singing loud, what they're loving to engage in the moments. I feel like that helps. I always think you want to start the set with a sense of joy. You want to start the service because you're the first thing that anybody in the church gets to kind of say hi to. So it's not the senior pastor, it's not necessarily the MC. When we worship, we're the first thing. So you want something to feel faith in the room and bring a sense of joy, and then to think of like your set having some sort of journey. So I'm not going to pick like with everything, The Stand and I Surrender all in the same set, because then it's just a whole lot of sort of moments. Like you're almost thinking, what's going to give it a bit of journey, and then also the context you're in, kind of what Annie said. I'm not going to do 3 praise songs in an 8 a.m. chapel because not even I want to jump for that long. So I'm thinking of context. I'm thinking what the church are enjoying and what they're loving to sing. But then I'm also thinking, what are fresh ways that I can approach the set when it comes to a transition, or when it even comes to creating moments, creating a full 20-minute set that kind of gives it a bit of journey, instead of thinking 4 separate songs or 5 separate songs that serve their own purpose. And then the other big thing would be, I'm always thinking of who I'm on with. If you have a church where you have a co-leader or you're on somebody, like that's a significant part when it comes to your process. So I'm thinking of a song that they could win with and have still honor the church, and the church kind of lean into their leadership as a result of what you think. So that would probably be some of the things I think of.
Yeah, I love it. And my kind of thought or experience on it is exactly like what you touched on before, that we can fall in the trap of picking our favourite songs. And there's nothing wrong with having favourite songs, but like what Alex kind of tipped his hat to is the truth that it's when we lead worship, it's not about us, and it's not just it's about every single person. And probably the thing that's helped me on the journey of picking songs, and I still wouldn't call myself an expert, it's something that like it's a big weight to, and we've got a cut-off date to hand in our song lists to make sure we can get the song list around to the band and everyone that needs to do it so we can be on the right page. But it's that whole, like Sean touched on, the collaboration, not just with the co-leader, but I'll have some of my peers who are worship leaders, or those that have been doing it a little bit longer than me or a little bit further ahead. I can't remember the last time in the last, over the last 5 or 10 years that I've ever just picked a song list and gave it to whoever I had, the music director or my oversight, and I always will get someone's feedback in, and that means you've actually got to be open to, because what you can go, what do you think of my awesome song list, and then shut your ears. But what happens when they go, oh man, I don't know if this song is actually, especially if you don't agree with them, it doesn't mean that like you're right and they're wrong. I think it's really important. There's safety in that number and collaborating together. So then moving on, engaging with the congregation is a huge, so obviously we've got to prepare, we've got to, write our set list, but actually engaging with the congregation is one of the biggest responsibilities of a worship leader. We're not karaoke singers, even though we've got a microphone and lyrics on the back screen and the ball that goes on. You guys have the ball that bounces on your back lyric screen? Neither do we, it's a joke. But it's not Christian karaoke, and we're not there to just press play and have these arrangements. We prepare, but we want God to move and people to encounter God. And I think it's a rarity that we just kind of can just sing through 4 songs or 2 songs or 3 songs or 5 songs without having to actually engage with people. I think it's one of the most primary roles. So, Mel, you are amazing at this, as is everybody else here. What would you say is wisdom or experience on how to really engage the church or the congregation or youth or whoever it is that might be gathered?
Yeah. I think as worship leaders, it's so easy to think that engaging is all in the mic, trying to engage with people, but there's actually so many other things going on that connect with people. That's everything from your facial expression to your body language to where your eyes are, and are they looking at people? Are you involved? Are you in the room, or are you somewhere else? And I found that when I'm leading, I love to actually see who I'm leading and actually encourage them. And I find myself often praying as I'm singing that you would go on this journey with me, that you would see God, that you would connect with God. And I think think that's what we need to be mindful of. And then as well as, vocally encouraging and picking moments and even planning that, like where's going to be the best part to encourage a congregation and yeah.
So like Sean, what do you do when you just feel like nothing's working or the congregation or whoever you're leading aren't engaged? How do you change that atmosphere? Because I think what can be easy, I know I would do early on, is sometimes there's this temptation when I first started leading worship and you can tell that the crew that you're leading aren't following. I'm like, okay, I could just shut my eyes, sing. I've only got 2 more songs. I'm just going to plow through this and like hand it over to the MC and be like sucked in, But unfortunately, that's kind of not what we meant to do. So what would you...
Yeah, it's funny. I think when I first started leading worship, I was just so wild. I'd close my eyes and be like, I'm going to go there even if you aren't, And I just didn't care. And, we had like just this wild kind of raw prophetic community. And like our highest goal wasn't engaging a room. But the Lord really began to speak to me and like, hey, like, I'm the good shepherd. I leave the 99 to find the one. And I think sometimes what we don't understand, and I've been really moved by this, even recently, like people live hard lives. Like they have tough weeks, and they're coming into an atmosphere. They're not in the glory zone working on songs all the time, talking about their band. They're just trying to find God. They're just, and we have like a moment that we get to steward an atmosphere. We get to create an atmosphere, and I think sometimes as worship leaders, if we can, it says in 1 Corinthians 4 that we're stewards of the mysteries of God. We're not just singing songs on a screen, but we are stewarding an atmosphere where people can catch a revelation of who God is. And that whole like theological thing shifted in the way that I began to lead, and where I was like, Sister Susie on the back row, like I want her to get blasted by God's goodness this morning. What do I need to do, God? Show me what I need to do to engage her. And, sometimes it does look like, sharing, a 30-second revelation or just kind of welcoming people in. And then sometimes it looks like trusting the Holy Spirit and embracing moments of awkwardness. We rarely give selahs in church anymore because we're so scared of silence or space. But God's not scared of space, and sometimes allowing moments, we had a couple of those last night, are beautiful. And sometimes, God wants to use us to rally people, and sometimes maybe he just wants us to not sing and just, let a pad play for a minute and like let people sit in a reflection moment. So anyway, all that to say, I would love for people, even those of you guys in here, to start thinking of yourselves less of just song leaders and more as people that steward atmospheres. I think that would really change our mind.
Man, that's amazing. Yeah, come on. Like 3 people clap, we all clap. I think something that, and if you've been around for a while, and especially even if you were just here last night, you heard what Pastor Brian said, which he's been saying to all of us since I can remember, encouraging us to lead to the back rows. And it's true, I remember when I started out leading worship, just super keen and excited, and like Ruben Morgan was kind of my boss or leader, and he'd always be like, man, how did it go tonight? And he was there. I didn't realize I was so like stupid that I like, when Ruben asked a question, he was more telling you something. And so like he goes, how was it? I'm like, man, it was going off. And it's like, because the first 3 rows were going crazy. And then it was like at a stage where we'd have like on Sunday night, like a 5 and a 7 p.m. And then he'd be like, okay, like, how was the back of the floor and how were the back rows? And I was like, I don't know. And then it was like the next service, they were going crazy. And I kind of looked, and the 4th row was kind of chilling out, and it was just like dead behind that. And I think just this is going to sound really simple, but I think it's really important that we can't ever forget that. I think being aware that we can actually be aware of the atmosphere, like Sean was talking about, I think is the first step to actually addressing and lifting the atmosphere, and then understanding it is our responsibility. We're not going we kind of joke about this, but it's not about the hands test. Like, you didn't, just because you had 80% of the room had their hands in the air doesn't mean that that doesn't prove that the worship service was awesome, or if everybody's jumping. Trust me, I much prefer if everyone's jumping and everyone's got their hands in the air. And when you ask if anyone loves Jesus, if everyone yells back, it feels so much better. But at the same time, we can't also see what God's doing. And any of the things that we do, we can't, it's not us that changes people's lives. It's the power of God's Spirit. But I do think we are stewards. Like, I love what Sean was talking about, of the mysteries of God and creating everything that we're about. And if you're new to our world, or it's the first time you've been at something like this, we try to pay so much attention to details, and we're so strategic about how we can make sure the car park team are at the right places to make it as easy as people to get in a car park, just to eliminate as many distractions or issues. And it seems when it comes to worship, in our services and coming through the foyers, we're doing everything that we can to get rid of as many distractions, because we just want people to be able to focus their attention on Jesus and who he is, because we know if we can get them to Jesus, then he can do the rest and everything's going to be okay. And so that's why for us, if we can create an atmosphere, it's not so like that we can measure the sound of the crowd's cheers or the hands in the air, but it's so we can just do as much as we can, knowing that at the end of the day, it's only by the grace of God that. But I think we've got to understand as worship leaders that we can be aware of the atmosphere, and then we can also change it. And so that's an amazing thing. Okay, quickly, staying practically, I want to talk about the worship leader's role with the band. And the way we work at most of our services, and we have 30 different locations and a truckload of services, and they're all different size and they look different, on the platform. But Dean, I'm going to get your 2 cents on as a worship. So we have music directors, or what we call an MD, in most of our services. I don't know whether you have that or not where you're from, but how does the worship leader and relationship with the band go?
Yeah, great question. I love that Sean used the word collaboration, because I think we try and show that in our church, is that we're one team. The whole thing's one team. The front of house guy, the lyrics person, if the lyrics don't go up, the church is not going to sing the unknown lyrics of So Will I. And so we're all one team. And so when it comes to the band, it's never a dictatorship. It's never like, I've come with this idea, we're going to do it this way. No, it's like they should be better musically than any of us. And so our worship lead team, there's a whole various amount of different people with different musical ability or understanding or theoretical knowledge. But the music director, it's their job to shape the sound, to work with the team, and I think they're your biggest help. And if you can develop that relationship with the team, I work so closely with MDs and drummers, because drummers also can set the tone of a meeting like no one else can. They can lift the faith and the energy. If you can sink in as a worship leader with your drummer and the rise and fall with an MD calling chords and dynamics, then it's incredibly powerful. And so even as practically as Annie said, she likes to call her MD every Thursday whenever she gets her set list in and go, does this sound cool? Do these key signatures work for singability of the church? Do they work to transition? How do the tempos line up? These are all the kind of thoughts that a musical team can think about and can help you with. But beyond that, I think the leading of a worship moment is even more imperative. And so when I run a rehearsal, I don't care so much about playing the 4 songs and making sure we can now, this is living again. I actually care way more about the engagement and the unity of the team, the ability to move and go with moments, because I think we all know the songs pretty well. But I care most about that we're in unity, because that's where God commands a blessing, that we can move quickly and go where we need to go down those rabbit holes. And so I rehearse transitions and moments above everything else. And if we're not in a place where I feel like we can easily go somewhere, then we're going to free worship in our rehearsal to get in that space so that we can get there in the service, because you don't know if you can do it in the service if you definitely can't do it in the rehearsals. So that's just my idea with the band. We're one team. We've got to be able to move together, and if it's felt in the room if you're not able to. So
it's awesome. And Sean, I'd love you just to comment, because which I love. I've had we're in great, we're mates, and you come here a couple of times, and I've been to Bethel, and we played at Worship U last year, and just being a part of that environment is just, it's crazy, it's amazing. And I feel like you do, I love how you touched on the spontaneity and the, preparation, how it goes well, but can you actually tell us your thoughts or wisdom on, how do you communicate with the band in those spontaneous moments, or even do you have hand signals, or what would you, I don't know, because even like we've got a system here the way we do, like that's chorus, that's the bridge, that's tag or whatever. But what are your signs, or how do you engage with those bands and keep it so, because you go anywhere and everywhere at the same time?
Yeah, generally if I flex my left butt cheek, the band will modulate.
He's not Hillsong, he's Bethel, remember? We just wrote about that.
No, I think that's good. We kind of have the privilege in our environment where we're, I think the last thing that we're really trying to do is like plow through a set list. And having said that, we have tons of songs. It's not that we don't have songs, but I think we're always kind of like, I feel like following the Holy Spirit. It's like following a river. In the Bible, it talks a lot about the river of God, and rivers are like this, and so we're always kind of brooding. We're always kind of seeing, okay, who's the Holy Spirit landing on? And, the more that you lead with certain people, the more you kind of catch their mannerisms, the more that you build history with them, the more that you understand, like when I'm leading with Steph, like, I know this certain thing that she does, the little twitches, and I'm like, oh, she's got something. Like, let's just hang out here, everybody has kind of their different characteristics, and I think it's so beautiful. Like, I love how, we're all not called to be the same. We're not cookie cutter worship leaders. We all have unique sounds, unique songs, and I think when it comes to those moments as a band, we do have some amazing MDs, but we're also kind of in the same heart to where there's so much mutual trust. I don't have tons of hand signals, but if like I hear him calling out something that like, go to the next song, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. I feel like we're supposed to wait here. Then, I'll say something to him like this, let's just keep flowing with what we're on. We'll do little things like that. But it's amazing. A lot of the musicians in our environment kind of grew up in the house of prayer, in different places doing 2-hour worship sets. So like they can flow like no one's business. I mean, they can make it musically interesting, even if it's just 4 chords over and over again. There's space to where they'll change things up. And one of the favorite things I love is we have this the most brilliant musician in our environment, I would say, is a guy named Matt Ogden. He's a bass player, and he's always changing. When we go into some of those flows, he's always changing the route, on bass, and it's brilliant because if it needs to lift, he'll change it. If it needs to go down, if it needs to ascend, and he'll just call those chords out, and we get used to flowing in the place to where they were doing some of it last night. Like, I don't know if you guys saw last night, great worship leader moment, but Brooke was feeling something, and she turned around in 4, 1, 5. I mean,
did anyone notice that last night? I was losing my mind. I haven't seen that before. I'm going,
yeah, and that is so good. I mean, I think from a proficiency standpoint, getting your band to the area where you can do that. Of course, Brooke is kind of genius, but she knows where she wants to go melodically, and she knows the chords that need to be played over that in order for her to go there. So that's like next level, but it's actually that's definitely next level. But honestly, I mean, learning the Nashville number system, and it's not actually that difficult, and it's incredibly freeing. And so that's maybe a practical thing that you can take away from that, like even as a band. And how many of you guys use that system in your band? Okay, write that down. Start to learn that, because that is an incredible thing that will help free you kind of in those in-between moments.
Amazing. The other thing about that moment last night, just as a little bit of insight. So what Brooke was singing is a brand new song that I think we'll do tonight or at some stage over the remainder of this conference. But the band had never heard the song before. She's been writing in the studio with Joel, and I'd heard that section of it before, but that's the reason she was calling those chords, was because they'd never heard the song, but she felt like the right thing to sing was this song that's called Lay My Burdens Down, and I was just on the side of stage going, that was just so, Presence of God was awesome, but I'm like, this is so entertaining, like, and she's calling the chords in front of everybody, and it was on a live stream. So anyway, we've got about 20 minutes left. And so what we're going to do is we're going to open the floor for questions. Has this been helpful so far? Okay, thanks for just lying, even if it ever hasn't been, and saying yes. I'll sleep much better tonight. And so I think, is Danny or Augustina, our two friends. We need one of these mics. They're going to roam, and also the other thing we're going to do, depending on how it goes, but if you run out of questions, I've got last year, I don't know if anyone was we did a similar collab last year in this same room, and I put a piece of paper on everyone's seat and got people to write in their questions and hand them in, but we kind of like now ran out of time and didn't get to them all, but I compiled them all and have got some here, so we've got plenty of things we can get through, but I thought we'd also, I'm sure there'll be some crossovers, so I can't see Danny or Augustina. Do we have anyone? First question? Oh yeah, it's coming to the lady pink in the middle.
Hi. Woo. Okay, I'm Amanda, and a student, first semester student at the college, but I'm interested in worship leading and stuff too. I just wanted to know, and whoever wants to answer this, how do you consistently keep in mind keeping your life pure before God and people, both on and off the platform? Because I know that's like really important when you're responsible for leading people into the holiness of God. So.
Annie's like one of the holiest people I know, so she's definitely answering this one.
Well, I would say personally, before I'm a worship leader or a pastor or anything, I'm a follower of Jesus and I'm a disciple. And so I want everything about my leadership and my life to flow out of that place. And that has got to be a real place, because that's what all of this is about anyways. I will say that there's a real, I know we all take it quite seriously, there's a real responsibility to get up on a platform and lead people in worship. And people notice you getting up and leading and then stepping off the platform and maybe not treating people great. So I know all of us can, and I would say this isn't my platform at all. This is our senior pastor's platform. And so whenever any of us have the opportunity to lead, we understand that it's a real responsibility and an honor that we have been entrusted with, and would want to steward that well and always represent our church and our team well. But number one, represent Jesus well. That my life would speak more than, I guess, the 20 minutes in a service that I might lead people, that hopefully people I'm in relationship with and just do life with, that actually that I love Jesus and I'm a follower of him, that would speak louder than the way that I serve publicly in church.
Yeah. And I think one of the most powerful things of being a worship leader isn't necessarily a great voice, or even you're a great musician. I think those things are really important and necessary, but even more important is authenticity. And I think that who you are as a worship leader reflects completely who you are off the platform. Growing up in this team, one of the most fundamental principles, foundational culture of who we are, the most important thing is the unseen. It's not about, who we are on the platform should just reflect who we are off. And I tell you what, I think we would all understand this. You can't fake authenticity. You might be able to for a short period of time, but you can come up here and say the right things, sing the right songs, but we can, people aren't stupid and you can see straight through that. And so I think who you are off the platform is the most important thing. But I do want to say one thing from my journey about purity and holiness and all the rest of it. I think we'd all understand worship leaders are human. Not one of us are perfect. I think we should hold the standard so high because we are ministers of the presence of God. But I think that if there's a level that that we have to obtain to be able to be a worship leader, you're going to get trapped in the enemy's going to trap you with the sins and the mistake. Because I'm going to tell you one thing that we all share in common: we're all sinners, we've all made mistakes, and we've all fallen short. But because of the grace of God, we are able to enter into his presence, and we are able to lead other people. And I think that, I know for me, I used to think it was like you can get trapped, and it's the trap of the law, and what the enemy would like to use is like, how do I be good enough to be able to stand on a platform and lead worship when I was a youth worship leader, and I'd be as best as I could. And the funny thing was, I feel like the more holier I tried to be and the better I tried to be, like the worse I'd end up lead worship. And then I'd just have the worst week ever where I did everything that I didn't want to do. I'd fallen over, I'd stumbled, and then I'd get up and lead like feeling like rubbish. And the presence of God was unbelievable, because it's not about you. It's about him. And I don't say that like Paul says. That's not a license to sin and do whatever you want, because we do, as we hold high that we are ministers of the presence of God. And so don't get me wrong, if we have people on our team that are doing, that are, that their lives aren't lining up with the word of God, then we're going to address that. And we're going to guard this platform, because this platform isn't about what goes on the light screen or a stage. It's about pointing people to Jesus. But one thing, every single person in our worship team is a human. And I don't know about you, but I'm so grateful for the grace of God on my life. And so that balance is, it's a fluid thing, and it's God looks at the heart. And so I think, those two things can ruin and rule our journey, and we can end up beating up ourselves too much. And I love a lot of the songs you're going to hear tonight come from a journey that is just tells the great story about God, his love and his grace. And so, but it is that tension that we all battle with, and we've got to, Sorry for that little rant. Next question.
Is it my turn? Hi. How do you guys identify and choose who worship leaders will be, and how you develop them? Maybe even some practical stuff.
Dean, this is you, bro. Oh, really? Yeah. You look enlightened.
This is so funny. We were talking about this on the weekend. There's so many factors. Like, you can talk about ability to sing, you can talk about ability to lead. I think the biggest factor I look for is spiritual authority. And we were literally talking about this with your brother Tim on Sunday, and we're developing some people who've got the best voice, and they've got amazing stage presence, and they love Jesus, but they can just take a service from here to here, and they're developing their spiritual authority. Then there's other people, and they don't have the greatest voice in the world. They do love Jesus so well, but they can grab a service and take it from here to here. They just carry a spiritual authority, and I think sometimes we get a little too caught up on the talent of the voice, whereas I think the Psalm says that David led his people with integrity of his heart and skill of his hands. I think both are so important. But when it comes to future worship leaders, I literally look at the youth who's in the front, and they all go crazy for Jesus. But I'm like, who's like shaping the people around them as they personally worship? I'm like, that's influence and that's authority. And so I'm like, they may not even be able to play an instrument, but I'm like, I'm gonna just test out the waters on those kind of people, because I've found in the long run, it's the people who are faithful and consistent and love Jesus first and foremost, and can lead people closer to Him, that through worship or through anything, they're the people that I would want on the platform.
Yeah, and I would just add, you can't give what you don't have. You can't take people somewhere you've never been. So, the deeper your intimacy, the greater your authority. And, those are things that you don't always hear or want to hear at a worship leaders thing, because we want all the busy, practical things. But, the one thing that you can't get imparted to, or you can't learn, through a book, is the well of intimacy that you need to dig yourself. And that's the reservoir from which you pull from, even those seasons where you don't feel the presence of God, you don't feel like leading, you feel bummed out, you're pulling from the reservoir of history that you have with the Lord. And that's something that every worship leader has to build.
So good.
Thank you. Hi, I just have a question. I'm part of quite a small church, and we're still pioneering. How do you kind of go into free worship when you don't have any musicians? You just have like multi-tracks. How do you kind of like follow the way the Spirit's going when you can feel it's going in a certain direction, but you're so limited because the tracks kind of go from A to B?
Make the tracks longer? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. With us, when it comes to a track, we use them to serve the worship, and you're in a unique situation, and I would say maybe look outside what the track isn't doing for you, and then find another avenue. Yeah, that's tough. What do you think, Dean?
I don't know. If you try and develop free worship, you could find songs that have moments of that in it, and use the moments like Touch of Heaven, which has huge instrumentals. There's tons of songs like that. Our guys have started chopping up tracks. I hate tracks at the moment. I feel like they're robbing our services a little, and they add so much beautiful music, but they also steal spontaneity sometimes if we're not careful. So our guys have started chopping them up so that we can mix segments. If you get a clear plan, you could probably build the tracks how you want them. Yeah, and then keep praying for musicians. We've launched campuses that haven't had drummers, and we kept sending drummers from our other campuses until we said, God, provide a drummer. And we rostered a Sunday without a drummer and just did different worship one Sunday. And then we found out 2 weeks later there was 2 drummers sitting in the campus, didn't know how to get involved, didn't think it was their place. Next minute, the team's got drummers. And I'm like, just keep praying in musicians, because that will take it to the next step as well.
Hey, just with what you were saying about engaging the whole congregation, not just your front 2 or 3 rows, how specifically do you manage that? Just engaging the entire congregation and really just using that passion and just providing it to everyone, I guess.
Yeah, I'd probably say like your eyes are always a big thing. When I engage with a conversation with anybody, if they're looking down or they're looking to the side, it's hard to connect with somebody. So I would say when you're in a room where you know your face is on the screen, if you're looking down at the first 2 rows, chances are on the screen people can only see like your eyelids. And then also the people who are at the front, they're not staring down at the stage at your face. They're actually looking at a screen, trying to find an engagement there. So on a real practical level, I'd always say keep your eyes up. And I'll always say smiling. It's so disarming when somebody has a friendly face towards you. Because the truth is, I'm not going to be able to talk to everybody in the church. And I wish I could engage, but it's just not the reality of it. So the only engagement I have with them is connecting with my face. So in terms of the way I smile, in terms of the way I am towards. But then as well, when it comes to when you're encouraging a room, always invite people to do what you're doing. Never scream at them, or even understanding like for whatever room you're in, people want to come along the journey with you. So just like any good conversation with anybody, and I'm kind of keeping it in a sense where it is that like you're gaining a relationship with the people you're doing it with. You don't want to be barked at, you don't want to be told something, you actually want to be invited in. So whenever you're kind of talking or even encouraging the church, you're always with this sense of how can I bring you along, instead of telling like, hey, this is where I'm going, like kind of what Sean was saying, this is where I'm going, like follow me whether you like it or not. It is the sense of let's build a relationship. And then also the trust. Like the reality is, when it comes to rapport with your church, they're going to learn how to trust you. That people are going to learn how to trust you the more and more. So the more you're consistently in a room where they feel like your heart is for them and that you're actually caring for people will always lean into that. People will always lean into somebody who actually you can tell and get a sense that their main priority is the people in the room, and it's not about achieving something else. And then they lean into your leadership over time. So I think you need to trust the process in there, but then there's also those kind of practical ways you can engage a room.
So good. And one thing that also answers this question, but I think so many others when it comes to the craft of leading worship, I know for me personally, one of the most like helpful things has been actually getting feedback. And the most painful feedback is usually the most helpful, and it hurts. Like the things that I've heard either from our front of house, and here's the thing, I've said this before and I'll say it all the time because it's really important. You can find someone who's going to tell you regardless of how it went, there's going to be the kind of people that are just going to tell you you're awesome all the time. I'm one of those people. So if you want real feedback, don't ask me how you went, because I'm going to tell you you're awesome. But there's other people who even doesn't matter how good you are, they've just got a chip on their shoulder, and they're going to, But I've found a few different styles. Like so, for me, it's our front of house guys. It's my wife is unbelievable at giving feedback, and also she doesn't lie to me ever. It's the best. and also just, like leadership and youth, like, because things that you just don't know, the things you don't know. Blind spots are blind spots because you can't see them. So the more you can discover blind spots, they're going to help you. And that's when it comes to leading. And even on this last trip, I just got back from a big trip through the States with Pastor Brian, and our front of house guy was like, hey, just remember the way you project. You were talking a bit quiet, and so the whole crowd shrunk back. And the next night, my hand signals are a bit bigger, and my voice and my head was up, and it's just crazy. But I was like, we all need to improve. So probably got time for a couple more questions. 5 minutes.
Yeah. So, like from a church back home, like the team I'm part of, I feel like are very comfortable, singing and leading the congregation like older songs. So I was wondering, how do you go about, like as a leader, like introducing new songs to a team, but also to the congregation, since they may be used to like singing older songs?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and something that we should always be doing. And it's not easy. Who wants to? How do you?
I mean, I think a lot of times it helps when you have a pastoral team that's in place that's helping teach how valuable the new song is. Like there's 87 times. I remember looking this up for a teaching one time. There's 87 times in the Bible it has a direct command to sing a new song to the Lord. So, and it's not like a request. It's not like if you feel like it. It's like a demand upon us, like sing something new that you've never sung before. So, and I think sometimes we're always kind of we do a lot of new songs. We're probably on the end where we're just like, we just wrote a song yesterday. Let's try it. We're like, we love it. I think it's great. But in I will say this practically, the placement of a new song is really important because, it's really good, like to place it somewhere where you're kind of taking the least amount of risk. To where, place it sandwich it in between some songs that people already know, the go-tos that will explode in the room. And then that way you can kind of get a good test. Like, okay, if it doesn't work, if it fails miserably, if it's not, we actually try songs and then we'll go back and watch the live stream or whatever, someone's YouTube post, and we'll change the lyrics. Like we do that a lot. I'm not saying that's always the model, but that's just kind of what we like to test out bridges and choruses and different things, and we'll tweak them based upon how they engage a room. But if you place new songs around songs that people know, it's powerful because you're starting with something that you do know, and you're launching off into something you don't. And so. And then if that is tough and it's not working or it's not doing what you hope, then you can go back to a song that you know. So I think you can get away. I love new songs. I think we should all be writing them. I think everybody in here should write new songs. But I think we should place them in a way in which it's easy for people to engage.
And I'll just add, we are blessed to be a part of a new songs culture, as is Bethel, as is many churches, and I've been in churches that are not. And so I think you need to create a culture of that, and it kind of starts with leadership. Brian loves new songs, so our church loves new songs, and so if you're the only one who loves new songs, it's going to be hard. But to create a culture of it, it's a discussion, and I would say collaborate with your team. Don't just go, here's 10 new songs I love that we should be doing. They go, hey, what new songs are you guys loving? Like, what should we be doing? Chat with your leadership about that. And then use other opportunities. Mel was just saying, like, use communion moments to try something new. And it's an item, or like it's Christmas, or whatever it is. It's Mother's Day, Father's Day. I think if you can create a culture of new songs, then it'll be embraced much more. And so.
Okay. My question is for both Bethel and Hillsong, since you both are here, praise God. As a pioneer churches, how do you maintain and how do you create a culture of authenticity and humility with your newcomers? I find myself, I'm from the U.S., I'm from Virginia. Our church is one of the more well-known and more prevalent black churches in our area. But, I grew up there, been there for over 25 years, but we're starting to hire more people. And for us, as for my culture, it's kind of more so like, oh, well, yeah, I'm on at CRC, and it becomes like I'm not the one that hires people, but I'm the one that ends up having to train them. And so what are the principles that you guys instill in those newcomers that keeps people from getting out there? Oh, I'm on. As that's what we say in the U.S. for people that's saying I got a good job. I'm promoted pretty much, and getting it from off of the fact that you're on a big stage to the fact that I'm really still serving God's people.
Quickly, because we're out of time, the two main things. First and foremost, the most important thing, building culture and setting the standard comes from example. Like, we cannot write out what we want people to do and then tell them to do it. You can, it won't work. But around here, and from experience, I've been in this church since I was 4 years old, and I've been friends with the Houston kids and grew half up in the Houston house. And Pastor Brian and Bobby are who they are on and off the platform. I've just had the privilege of watching them, talking to them. They are the most normal people. They love Jesus. They're real. They're humble. They'll serve. And so it's, I think, part of the reason, and that goes through everything. And so I've grown up about just watching it, and it's so foreign to be anything else like that, so we've got to keep modeling it and be that example, which I'm sure we all know that. But that is one thing that's the easiest thing to let go of, and then we get surprised when our culture starts to slide. And the second thing is it's addressing it. And obviously it can be complicated because, with the situation, if you're dealing with, like you were saying, that you didn't necessarily hire the person, but you have to train them or work with them. And then it's hard. And that's where we've got to understand that at the end of the day, God's sovereign, God's in control, and we can only do what we can do. So if you're in a position at a church where you're a worship leader, but your worship pastor, you just whatever, or if you're a vocalist and you're worship leader, or you're whatever it is, I just want to encourage you to be faithful to God. That, we're called to do everything that we do unto the Lord and do it with our best ability. And God honors that. God's so big, he can take Joseph out of prison and promote him, but we think that we've got to do it all in our own strength, and we've got to change it. You've got to actually submit to God. And so you've got to know your authority. But if you've got the authority, one thing that we're strong on is we'll challenge. If I've got people in my team that I see attitude, I'll challenge it, and I'll challenge it because it's just not part of what we do. We are here to minister the presence of God, and that's where there's no room for that. Yes, there's grace. We love you, and we'll lean into people that lean back into us. But if someone's going to keep being late, I'm not going to roster them. They can't anyone can be a part of our team, but being part of our team means that you come on time, that you know the songs, that you give your best. Doesn't mean that you're perfect. So people do make mistakes. It's not like, boom, you're off the roster or whatever. It's all done through relational, but at the same time, we care so much about the presence of God and the platform that he's given us that we can't afford to treat it with familiarity. And so I think that live by that example and then address those culture. But if you're not in a position, which I think probably a lot of us would be and most of us are, then you just got to trust God. Be as faithful as you can and understand that you're not singing to impress the pastor or your worship pastor. You're singing to bring glory to God and hoping that people will see Jesus. And if Jesus can use a donkey, he can use you and I. And so that's what I always pray, because I feel less than a donkey most of the time, to be honest. And so I just thank God for his grace. So we're out of time. Sean, would you finish in by praying for all of us? Yeah. And then we're going to get kicked out.
Yeah, let's pray. Just put your hands out like this. So just, Lord, we just thank you for, God, just the privilege to be here, Lord, the privilege to hear different ideas and thoughts and revelation. I just pray, Lord, that, Lord, you would mark our hearts with just that, Lord, that pastoral grace, Lord, that Lord, we would lay our lives down just like you did for the church, Lord, whatever that looks like in whatever capacity that we can. I pray that, Lord, you would give us such a heart of a servant, Lord, to lead, God. Lead from the place of humility, God, to lead from the place of honor, to lead from the place, Lord, what a job that we have. We get to lead people into your presence. There's nothing greater on planet Earth. There's no greater job. And I pray, Lord, you'd fill us today with excitement, with expectation, even though some people in here are facing different challenges and they still have questions. Lord, overwhelm us with expectation for what you're going to do in our churches, in our lives, in our worship teams, and that we would take this faith with us as we go. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right, thank you so much. I pray you're inspired, encouraged, and you can get to, do we have an announcement?
Hi, everyone. So we're getting ready for a transition now. So if you're staying in this room for the next session, we just need to scan your passport or your phone so that we can make sure that we have enough people in here. Otherwise, if you're not in this session but going to another one, please head outside for the other collabs. Thank you.